And Brady Quinn is out there in Ohio getting ready to cover this game. Brady, biggest question has to be the health of Blake Corum going into this game.
It's Blake Corum and it's Donovan Edwards, who obviously is the other running back that plays a role in all of this, maybe even the faster of the two. But there's no doubt about it. The Heisman Trophy candidate Blake Corum and his health and status is the biggest concern, I think, for Michigan. If they don't have him and even Donovan Edwards in the backfield, they lose a lot of that offensive firepower. It puts a lot of pressure on J.J. McCarthy, who really hasn't been tested yet this season. Now, earlier this week, we did see Blake Corum walking around, passing out turkeys, utilizing some of that NIL money to do good in the community. And it's hard to tell because he's wearing sweats, but he didn't seem to be walking with a limp. So curious as to, with that footage getting out, if that's maybe Michigan with some gamesmanship or if it's legit. And Blake Corum was pulled out of last week's game knowing that he's going to have a shot and want to keep him healthy for this big time matchup. But this game is about a couple of things. I think it's going back to last year, looking at how Michigan physically dominated Ohio State, and then really for Ohio State proving how far they've come, in particular as a defense, to be able to stop the rushing attack of Michigan. The hiring of defensive coordinator Jim Knowles, the physicality that I think he's brought and the demeanor he's brought to that defense. Some of their star players too. Tommy Eichenberger's really stood out at linebacker for them this year. JT Tuimoloau, who's been phenomenal too off of the edge in the variety of ways in which he plays. This will be a test for them, and probably the first really true test of a team that can run the football like Michigan can, and has the best offensive line, in my opinion. You know, Michigan won the Joe Moore Award Offensive Line of the Year, which goes to the best offensive line in the country last year. I think they're better this year. And their defense has been just as stingy this year, although I don't know if they have the same type of star power. And I think that's the difference in this game. It's ultimately going to be the inability for Michigan to match up with the wide receivers on the outside, Marvin Harrison Jr. in particular, for Ohio State. And I think J.J. McCarthy, who, again, hasn't been tested in the passing game, is going to have a hard time keeping pace. This game's in Columbus. It's going to be a crazy environment. I expect Ohio State to cover this number, but I do think it hits the under when it's all said and done.
I'm with you. A lot of the same reasons. I think the better quarterback is C.J. Stroud. J.J. McCarthy, I thought we were going to get a little bit more explosive. So if you had issues with your running back, it wouldn't matter that much. But we haven't seen that. So if you do have those depth issues at Michigan, that's going to put a lot more on J.J. McCarthy, who for 3 games in a row has completed around 50% of his passes and thrown around 200 yards. That's not enough firepower to get it done. And I do think, like you mentioned, Ryan Day specifically addressed the issues on the defensive side of the ball for this game specifically. And Ohio State is more battle-tested. They've been in tougher games on the road. I know last week both of them struggled, but again, Michigan was at home versus Illinois, and Ohio State was on the road at Maryland. Ohio State was in a tougher game against Notre Dame earlier this year. They were on the road in a battle against Penn State. Michigan has not been tested in a fourth-quarter game this year. The schedule has been as light as anybody's in the country. I think that matters. I think Ohio State is better, more physical than they were last year, and I trust that firepower. Plus, the issues at running back haven't bothered them one bit because they plug in another guy every time, and he still goes off. So I like the Buckeyes as well, and I do think Michigan will struggle to put up points, and I think Ohio State's defense has a chance to shine. So I lay the points as well with the Buckeyes.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.